Before we get started, this video is going to cover the making, installing and review of the muffler. If you just want to hear the sound in depth, there's a separate video before this one. Link will be in the description. Ready, set, begin. I dig the Swiss Sport. It's a well-balanced vehicle where you honestly don't need to do much to make it sweeter than it already is. At the same time though, it's also very easy to upset its balance. The Sport has a throaty 1.6 litre engine, but for me it really lacks in the exhaust sound department. It's lacking because there's a really quiet, restrictive factory exhaust. This is pretty much to be expected from factory, adding to the noise laws in Japan, which are quite strict. In stock form, the exhaust has a bit of a soft buzzy tone, but listen to it closely and you'll hear there's some sound waiting to be unlocked. So I decided to get a key for that. Okay, so you have to ask yourself why you want to do this though. And for me personally, I want it purely for sound as opposed to performance, so a muffler rather than a catback will do for now. Aiming to maintain the same power figures with the appropriate flow and back pressure, but de-restrict the sound a little more. Yeah, until I figure out the teleprompter situation, I'm just gonna read off the script over here. And maybe because I didn't shoot enough footage, I don't know. That does tend to happen quite a few times. This is all you're getting. Eat your vegetables. Right, so hearing many sound clips online of different setups, which confirmed my decision to stick with only changing the muffler section while keeping the rest of the system factory spec. At first glance, the Swift's exhaust system is relatively simple. I mean, you got the manifold, the cat, the resonated mid-pipe with the split muffler. And changing the mid-pipe I felt in the Swift was a bit of a gamble pretty much, because you will either end up sounding really sweet or it could be a noisy, drony mess. And I really hate that, I will tell you that much. And yeah, it's a bit of a gamble, so I'd rather not. So I'm gonna stick with just changing the muffler in this instance. But yeah, you don't want that for your daily, do you? No, you don't. You really don't. So check this, I'm gonna take some inspiration from the Japanese aftermarket exhaust for these. And some of you may just ask, why don't I just get that then? There's the HKS Lego Max, there's the Monster Motorsport muffler and the Grady Systems. And even on Up Garage, they actually seem to be pretty cheap. Yeah, cheap in Japan. Let's not forget we have to convert this to rands. Then after you convert it to rands, the shipping, everything else in between, customs. Oh yes, let's not forget SARS. Oh, SARS, we will not forget them. So no thanks, it's not happening. And don't mention Yahoo auctions. It looks cheap on the site until you figure out what the landed price is going to be. Ooh. Gave me chills. And yeah, it's just an expensive affair, so if you do have the money, you can. It's a brilliant idea. But in my instance, since I'm doing it on a budget, so we're not gonna go that route pretty much. Maybe not at this point though. But yeah, I will speak a little bit more about the Japanese exhaust towards the end though. Going to the local exhaust fabricators was the plan. Proudly South African, and Kyalami Performance Center was willing to take up the task of sorting out the key to unlock the sound I so desired. I liked the fabrication work I saw from their social media, and the cost wasn't all that bad, so hey, I went to them. After a plan of action was devised and my requirements discussed, the gents got to work on the all-new muffler system. The muffler would consist of a single stainless steel small power flow box, which is a fraction in size of the factory box. One end coming from the factory mid-pipe section, cutting and reusing the factory flange from the factory muffler. From the box then, a single pipe splits into two, the outlets going out to the tips. The tips of which were the factory ones being reused since they used screw fasteners. According to the fabricators, this was a bit of a job to make up since it was their first time doing something for the Swiss Sport. Many bends, but man, check out this design, it's actually really sweet. Here's the first start of the all-new muffler. It's definitely louder and bassier in terms of tone compared to the factory muffler. It's more pronounced, especially when you open up the car, as you've already heard now. Right, so thoughts on the muffler. I've had this on for over a week now, and I paid attention to it among the times that I've driven the Swift. And at first, I really did like this muffler. It was so awesome to have, but now I don't really like it. Why, you may ask? Let's get into this. This is based purely on my personal preferences and the initial sound I was hoping to unlock. Bear in mind, I'm not touting myself to be a technical mind in this aspect, but there will be some speak of it. There's a few verdicts. The sound and tone is great, however it leaks into the interior and drones softly in a few instances when I'm just punting around. I expected the fact that since it's a significantly smaller backbox that this will happen. Add into that, I'm also very fussy when it comes to exhaust. To other people who have been in the car with me, they weren't really bothered by the soft drone. In fact, they were actually quite excited to hear it, but it certainly bothered me. On the highway with cruise control on and even lightly touching the throttle, it got annoying for me. Another thing is, I personally felt that there wasn't a need to cut off the factory flange from my old muffler to fit the new one. If anything, it makes reverting back to factory spec a pain in the ass to deal with, which is what I've experienced now because I've decided to return the car back to factory spec. This muffler is more for those who don't really mind what I've mentioned above. The flange can be made to fit this particular vehicle, and it isn't a case of having a full system done because I don't want a full system. On the butt dyno, things kind of felt the same, so I'm assuming the back pressure was maintained. I thought that was worth mentioning. But why did we reach this verdict? Why did I say all of those things? Why did I not like it? Let me explain why. Remember when I mentioned that I listened to a lot of JDM exhausts? Well, it's a bit of a mistake on my end to take the JDM exhaust as gospel, in that from first glance anything they do will be the same if I try and replicate that. Big mistake. Not only have I listened on YouTube, but I've also driven cars with the exhaust that are JASMA approved. Now, what is JASMA, you may ask? Well, long story short, JASMA, or the Japan Automotive Sports Muffler Association, put up regulations on how loud an aftermarket exhaust is allowed to be for street legal use and factors to improve the tech surrounding exhaust fabrication. You can Google this for more info, they have a website for this. So if you were a member of said association, your products had to adhere to a certain standard to get the JASMA stamp. It's different exhausts for different purposes, be it street, track or OEM+. Of the cars that I've driven that are JASMA approved, the exhaust on them, the quality of them is insane. Insane in the sense that you get the benefits of a performance exhaust, but so much attention is given to volume and sound so that not only do they comply with the regulations stipulated, but there's also no drone in the interior in any instance, and you can live with the exhaust in question. Any kink, any bend or small resonator box, it's not just for aesthetics. There's a certain scientific reason to why they did that, or put that in this system pretty much. It explains as well why these exhausts also cost so much. I mean, hell, not even looking at Japan stuff, but the Rima's muffler, which is Suzuki approved mind you, has a lot of this taken into account. I mean, no wonder it costs 17k for just the back box. So in essence, this is what I should come to expect with high-end exhaust, regardless of whether it's JASMA approved or not, and it's also what my tastes are also developed around. Let's get into the technical aspects. Now, when you have to start considering science such as flow dynamics and pulse ratios, where there's a lot of engineering involved to fit a particular regulation, you know you're getting into some serious business with that. And oh my lord, this goes beyond my knowledge of grade 12 physical science in that regard particularly. So yeah, my ears were tuned to this, and this is what I enjoy. And like I said, I'm not a technical person in this aspect, as I've mentioned, but I will speak about my own experiences as a consumer. And it's also worth mentioning that, to my knowledge, there isn't something like JASMA in South Africa, although there are individual high-end exhaust manufacturers. And there are laws surrounding noise regulations and there doesn't seem to be something that would handle aftermarket exhaust in South Africa, kind of like what JASMA does essentially, so that's also worth taking into consideration as well. To be fair, I got what I paid for, but if I want to have all those little nuances considered and prevented, then I have to up my budget for a different style muffler, which will then affect the sound and even the back pressure of the exhaust. Most of all, I'd like to get rid of the drone in the interior so it's quiet and the volume of the exhaust just being below the factory induction noise, and also so I don't have to add additional sound deadening. That's also something to take into account as well. So a bit of a bust though. The car is back to factory spec and I'm going back to the drawing board for a little bit.
Adjust glasses.
If there's any fabricators out there that are willing to take on the challenge of making me a Jasmine-like muffler or a design that fits my desires essentially for my Swiss sports, then hey, feel free to contact me. However, because of this stupid COVID pandemic, that can't exactly happen right now because, yeah, poverty is a thing at this moment. Yeah, just a quick side note on the whole COVID situation as well. This stuff does not play, so please can you follow the guidelines in your area? Social distance, wear your mask, hand sanitize, wash your hands. Just do your bit, please. Anyways, back to the show. So thanks to the team at Kailami Performance Center for all the work that was involved. It was a very interesting design that you guys did, and it does have a nice sound. Unfortunately, I realized that it wasn't exactly to my taste. It's not to say that your work is bad or anything. And check out their Instagram to see their work if you're keen on that stuff. I think that's about it over here. I'm TayeedzSA, and that's all she wrote, so shop.